involved into the death of Lieutenant Joe Gliniewicz of the Fox Lake Police Department.
Yes, sir, I was.
And did part of that investigation also kind of morph into an inquiry into the Fox Lake Police Explorers program?
Yes, it did.
All right, and part of those investigatory duties, did it involve the specific involvement of Lieutenant Gliniewicz and his wife Melodie Gliniewicz as to their dealings in that Explorers program?
That is correct.
All right, and during your investigation, during those months, did you have occasion to speak with Melodie Gliniewicz?
Yes, I did.
And your purpose for speaking with her was a couple of reasons, but primarily an inquiry into her involvement and knowledge of the Fox Lake Explorers program. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then on October the 8th of 2015, did you set up a meeting with Melodie Gliniewicz to interview her at the Round Lake Beach Police Department?
Yes, I did.
And the interview started about 10:45 a.m. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you were there with also a Special Agent David Young of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And regarding the Melodie Gliniewicz you met with that day, is there stipulation in the identification?
Sure.
Okay. The record may reflect witness can identify the defendant Melodie Gliniewicz as being the person you interviewed that date. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then when you met with her to interview her, can you just very briefly describe the purpose that you and Agent Young had in conducting that interview?
Well, the interview was a twofold process. Agent Young had a scripted set of questions that he was going to ask to try and develop a profile of Joe Gliniewicz. My participation in that was some questions about the administration and finances of the Explorer Post, as well as to expound on any answers she gives to the questions about Joe, if that opens up any other doors that would be relative to what I wanted to know about.
That interview started about 10:45 in the morning on 10/8 of 15, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and the interview room you used at the Round Lake Beach Police Department is considered a soft interview room?
Yes.
With a couch and so on?
Yes, sir.
All right, that interview room is equipped both to audio and video record interview, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
In fact, was that interview on that date video and audio recorded?
Yes, it was.
All right, and prior to coming to court today, did you have occasion to once again watch that video interview?
Yes, I did.
All right, I believe there's a stipulation for the admission of the video being People's Exhibit 38. So I'd ask if this is a hard copy for the court, if I may tender that, Your Honor. We also have a video version on the computer. Sir, you did have occasion to watch the video before coming in today?
Yes, I did.
All right, and does this video that we're about to play accurately depict the interview that you conducted with defendant Melodie Gliniewicz and Agent Young on that date and time?
Yes, sir, it does.
This time, Your Honor, I'd ask to play the video. I'm sorry, one more.
Just to clarify, Judge, this exhibit is being admitted by agreement. It's only a portion of the interview. The interview is a couple hours long. This is, I believe, 26 minutes of the hours, and we're stipulating to this because of the nature of this is a sentencing hearing.
That's correct, Judge. I can add, this is a portion of the entire video, is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
You do stipulate it's relevant, correct?
Sorry.
All right.
Okay. Yes, and with that, I'd ask to play the video.
Sorry. Everybody wants to talk.
Yeah. Judge, I'm going to play it. You may have to turn the volume up on yours a little bit, but I'm going to play it.
You think I can do that?
I think
Not because I cannot.
Now, winding back to August 31st evening, what was the conversation like that night?
That night, he had
Yes.
told me
I'm
that
trying to.
Cameron
Just a second, folks.
a 100% inventory.
More microphones. Yes. Keep
Of
on
all
pushing.
the store stuff,
Do you think they would have made it easier?
from every patch to every uniform to every item in the
Okay.
building.
Matt,
And
you may want to raise your volume from there.
I think it was around 9 before he had gotten home. Just I'm trying to think what time he had sent me a text saying, come grab some stuff out of his car. Because we were in the process of changing the Explorer Post from the PD to the American Legion.
Gotcha. Okay.
because he still wanted to do the Explorers, but since he wasn't gonna be an employee of the PD, we wanted it someplace where we could still be active in it.
Okay.
So the American Legion was willing to take us on, and that's where we were gonna go. So he wanted me to have all the stuff because it was supposed to go Tuesday morning. They were supposed to do the final paperwork to switch it over,
I see.
and they never.
Okay. So, Ann Mirren, the village administrator,
Yeah,
okay. So that night,
you mean God.
okay. So he was upset, is that safe to say?
And he was pissed because she was trying to fold the Explorer program.
Okay. So it was a typical morning, you'd leave earlier than usual,
Right,
safe to say?
safe to say, yeah. Since all of her internal investigations started, it was a typical morning. He was gonna have his coffee, have his cigarettes, we were gonna small chit chat, you know, what do you got planned today, what are you doing, we got anything for the Explorers? And, you know, we were actually gearing up because we had, a swap weekend planned
Okay.
for the Explorers. So we were making sure we had the finals on all of that put into place,
I see.
you know, so, you know, and then his one thing for me was to make sure you get hold of Pepler, who's the BSA rep,
Okay.
and have him get this stuff, because Monday was when the shitstorm started, because Pepler had called Ann Merritt after we instructed him, don't talk to her,
Okay.
talk to us, and he called her and got her all riled up.
So his shift.
So that's when she started with the, I want the inventory, I want all the money, I want this, I want that. And we're like, why did you do this?
So the subject of Pepper's call, though, was this move, right, from Fox Lake to the American Legion?
No, we started that a while back when Behan was still
Okay.
the acting
She knew
chief.
that part was coming.
She knew that, she didn't know. No, she did not know.
Okay.
Behan knew, Donnie Schmidt knew, the mayor knew, and I don't think she knew until that Monday.
Okay. So what was the purpose of Pepper's call to her, do you know?
No, you know, he briefly spoke to me and said that I was just running it by her, and we're like, we told you not to talk to her.
Right. Yeah, because you knew that was gonna cause a shitstorm.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's when she really got in and drove out the inventory this day, not taking anything basically till we know what it is.
Right. And I know for a fact, Joe wasn't even dead in 24 hours. Then she went and immediately changed the locks of all of the building that we used and locked us up. She is now claiming that everything in there is village department property, and she'll dispose of it as she sees fit.
So then, because of all that, because you asked her not to do that, or asked him not to do that, did that change his, I mean, that 24-hour period seems like it was pretty critical. Now he was operating under this mandate, you know, he had to do the inventory. So on that morning, I know you did, it was a typical morning in terms of what you guys did together. How did he seem like, oh my God, I gotta go in and do this?
Yeah, I mean, he's like, I gotta finish the fucking inventory, and I'm like, okay. And I told him, I said, well, I'll call Pepler and just tell him to put the paperwork through, because my understanding is Joe could talk to Donnie Schmidt Monday. And he was like, move him.
Right.
Go do it. So he was like, okay, fine, you handle this, I'm gonna still go do the inventory, get that knocked out, you know, we still need to do an inventory, I mean, the amount of stuff we have, you know, And so I was gonna be calling Pepler in the morning, and that went downhill.
So directed at just Joe, what else did this woman want from him? She wanted inventory of the
Explorers,
explorers.
she wanted control of their money,
Okay, so finances,
yeah,
okay. What kind of finances did the explorers have, just like a bank account kind of thing?
Yeah.
Or how does that work? And
yeah.
what goes into that?
They're,
Because you guys do a shitload of details, right?
right, but
It's like I know it's
Yeah,
always doing a ton.
not everyone's like, oh, you do a shit ton of details, you got a shit ton of money.
No, I know, because they don't pay a lot, that's why they get the explorers, is they don't think,
Right,
it's
right.
a slave labor. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I know from, so,
you know, our biggest one would always be Lake County Fair, but we had other departments that we had to,
split the pot a little bit
yeah,
with them, right?
you know,
But that was most the income was from
details,
detail stuff.
yeah.
And then the outgoing was, that's the SWAT can stuff, things like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that, it would be all of our competitions we would go to. So you'd have state competition in Chandler in 1 year, you'd have national in Chandler in 1 year.
No, it's Chandler.
Chandler is the tactical, we go up to them for their tactical competition that they did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where's that at?
Chandler, Arizona.
Oh, that's a nice trip for kids.
Yeah, and we would drive all the kids out there,
Okay.
you know, 37.5 hours straight through.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but we always had like 6 adults with us, 2 in that van, 4 in this one. You guys switch out the sleeping, and then we keep switching drivers and stuff.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. Okay.
So
So she wanted equipment, money, anything else?
that's all I knew of.
Okay. How much of his time did the Explorer program take up? Because I know he was
A lot,
busting his ass on that.
a lot, a lot. You know, sometimes it became a thorn in my side, just because I wasn't as active as I usually was, especially when the Jeffrey issues came up. My focus was keeping my kid alive.
Right.
But I was still a part of it. I was still on the checking account.
All right. Anybody else we're gonna talk to that there was any issue with? I don't know how it works in Fox Lake. I know in Vernon Hills where I'm at, we got 2 advisors and then there's like 4 other volunteer cops that like do it, like I teach things.
None of the cops wanted to volunteer,
Okay, that's my
because
question.
their whole thing is we want to be paid.
Okay.
A lot of the guys, well, not a lot, a few of the guys would refer to Joe as an overpaid Boy Scout leader. That's what they would call him. You know,
Right.
but none of them wanted to volunteer their time, because the village and the PD both refused to pay any officers.
So it's Joe, you, and volunteers from the
We
community,
had
or?
Bill Federle
Okay.
and his wife Sandy Federle. Then we had Ann Gatza Buckhart, who was an explorer,
Okay.
and she aged out. And then we have Mason Hoy, who was an explorer. He aged out. I'm trying to think.
What is aging now, what?
When you turn 21, you
21,
can't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
be an adult leader at that point,
yeah,
I got
Not
something.
anymore,
yeah. Well, you can, depending on when your charter is.
Okay.
If you charter on, let's say, January 1st, and your birthday is, you turn 21 January 2nd, you can remain until the following charter.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, as long as you're 20 at that charter time,
Okay, got it.
you're good
Okay.
for the following charter. Most kids look at it like I'm 21,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, good to go.
I'm good,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, we have, and then I have other people from other departments that would come and do our residential boot camp that we would do. I've got Rachel Smithberg, who used to be one of my former explorers. She's now a Joliet police officer. Nick Garcia from Antioch, he would be there. Jeff Dalton, who is, used to be a Frankfurt cop, he's now director for Securitas, but he's also on the ILEEC committee with us. Joe and I were both on that committee. And then we have Pete and Darren Michaelchak, who used to be former explorers, and now they come back and they help us out with everything.
How are the kids?
Surprisingly, doing better than me.
Well, they probably got a lot of dad strength down, you know what I mean? And they'll look out for you, I would imagine. So as a couple, you're taking care of the home front, right? You're taking care of the house and stuff like that. How are things financially? How are things with the house? Any major big improvements coming up, things like that?
Sorry.
Yeah, I've not been in the house, so I don't know.
No, Joe and I, we just, you know, oh, look, there's a hole in the ceiling. We'll get to it eventually.
Okay.
You know,
Nothing was too rushed or anything?
nothing was ever rushed with us. It was, you know, we lived paycheck to paycheck.
Okay.
You know, I'd get behind on bills, and then I'd get caught up, you know. You know, I dip into my 401k and go, okay, fine, everything's caught up, let's break, you know.
Right.
You know, we always made it work.
So let me ask you a hard question, since we're in that place. What's something in this that you don't want to come out? What are you afraid is gonna come out in all this about Joe? Anything?
No, I mean, I can tell people, Joe could be an ass, but he was my ass for 27 years. He was my ass. I don't care how many affairs he had.
Okay.
Every night he still came home to me,
Right, I get it.
you know.
Right.
You know, I don't care how many negative emails he sent out to someone, because guess what? Every night he was still coming home to me.
We all bitch. We
Yeah.
all bitch and complain.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it is what it is.
Okay.
You know, I know when he would use the Explorer credit card, we always paid that back. You know, so I mean, that was just one of those things that, you know, shit, you know, what do I owe? You know, because if it
What do you mean you six?
we had to, like, I know I owe for DJ's airline ticket, bringing him home for Fernando's thing,
Okay.
and,
Oh, okay, so the Explorer account paid for that, and then you
yeah,
guys-
and then I always end up paying back, because I know on August 28th, he went up and paid the car bill for Jeffrey's car that had to get some work done on it,
Okay.
and he paid that off, so it's like the bill sits on my fridge, and I'm like, oh, okay, fine, I gotta pay that.
You know,
Yeah, so I mean, it's like, well, you know, there are times where I've, you know, taken 9 months and wrote a $2,700 check to, yeah, we owe that, you know.
okay.
So I mean, it's like people want to go, well, that's investment funds, and I'm like, no, not when you paid it back, you know.
Right.
You know, Joe did have his own checking account, and I think it was $400 each pay period went in there, because he was paying his student loan and stuff,
Okay,
and that's what I deemed his play money.
okay.
That's yours, everything else comes over here and pays the household bills,
Bills and stuff, okay.
you know.
What was his, he was still paying, what was the college again, where'd he go?
Catholic.
Catholic.
Yeah,
Still
so
paying
he
on
had
Catholic?
two federal student loans, and he had borrowed money on his, it's like a 401, but it's not a 401, a 517 or something like that. And he borrowed money against that account to pay off one of the loans,
Okay.
and was paying himself back.
So let me ask you this, so in case somebody asks us, how much money do you think the Explorer thing is out right now? What do you think you owe it?
about 1,000.
Okay, all right, so it's nothing crazy.
Oh, it's gone, no.
Okay.
No. Keller had called me the other day and said that the Gurnee Police Department called them saying that the post still owes them 2,000 from the Lake County Fair. And I don't know because you all have all my Explorer paperwork, so I can't even
Okay.
do anything. And I have money that has been set aside off of some of the benefits for the Explorers that is sitting on my fridge because I'm not going to sit there and start throwing money in the account and stuff. I'm like, you guys need to do what you need to do, and you're not going to start seeing money funneling in there. So I have not touched anything.
Do you still have access to the
Yeah.
account?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you this, it's kind of a catch-all, I guess, in a way. What do you think Joe would want his legacy to be?
That Explorer program was his legacy. He lived and breathed making sure that those kids achieved their goals.
Okay.
You know, he took pride in that. He took pride in how many kids went through the program multiple times, and went on and furthered their career.
Became police officers.
Or military even.
Right.
You know, a lot of the, like I said, we do a 9-day residential boot camp that we started doing. And most of my instructors are former explorers that have come back and they take their vacation and come and teach. So that was something we were always so proud and honored.
So with the implosion of the police department, as you put it, and the Explorer program along with it, do you think he saw his legacy being erased or?
No, because the steps were there to move it.
Okay.
The steps were there. That was, you know, we were going to move it to the American Legion
Right.
to ensure that that was still going on.
Okay.
So it wasn't, oh, hey, I'm losing everything and now I mean nothing. It
It's
was,
still going to be in place.
right. Plus, we still worked on the state of Illinois.
Okay.
So he knew, being ahead of the competition's chairperson, that he's making sure that all the competitions that we put on are in place, developing new ones, taking care of all of that.
Okay.
So,
Now, you guys, you mentioned earlier too that you guys had thought of some vacations. Did you mention Vermont or, okay, what was?
Spartan race,
Oh, should know.
Lake Havasu,
Okay.
Spartan race,
Okay.
North Carolina, Spartan
So
race.
most vacations were tailored around races then? or-
Yeah, I mean, we went out to Hawaii, and it was my 50th birthday, and I'd gone out with the girls to Vegas first. He flew out to Hawaii, to Oahu, because, oh, wait for it, Spartan trifecta race.
It couldn't be cheap. Hawaii?
It took us 25 years to save up, because that was our honeymoon,
Oh, okay.
25 years.
So you flew from Vegas out there?
Yeah.
Met him? Okay.
Yeah,
How long were you guys out?
probably 9 days, I think.
That's beautiful out there.
Because, well, I told him I'm not a big fan of Oahu, never was. I was supposed to move to Maui before we got married. That's how we ended up getting engaged, just because I said, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm leaving in 2 months. And then he asked me to marry him. And we went from Oahu out to Maui.
Yeah, I love Maui.
Um,
Yeah.
So where was your next trip going to be? Was that the Vermont one then?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I hadn't mapped everything out yet.
Oh, you said October, right? I think.
Was it in October?
I didn't catch it, I didn't catch the month.
I know I didn't say a month, but I can't remember when the Vermont one was. Because I know the North Carolina one I said was November,
Okay.
and the North Carolina
I think
one,
all you said was after retirement, this was the plan.
yeah,
Was that okay? So-
yeah.
Okay.
And I know, and I don't remember what order the races were gonna be in,
Okay.
but I know the November one was gonna be in North Carolina, and I was like, why go to Benning? DJ's gonna be home.
Yeah.
Couple more questions. I'm sure, know from seeing the space and stuff like that, there's multiple agencies all working on this between task force, FBI, ATS, been there, Secret Service was there. We basically, I don't know if anybody ever explained to you, but we actually adopted the lead system that was used in the Boston bombing. So everything came to the FBI kind of warehouse, and then they assigned the leads out so that there's one central place where the reports were going. Because in the beginning phases, we were kind of duplicating some work because like task force didn't know where the ATF was, and these guys didn't know where these guys were. Well, now we fixed it and we streamlined that. So everyone has like their little niche thing. Now my thing is not technology, never has been. I am a technology idiot. I have an iPhone that my daughter has to teach me to use. I'm not good at that stuff. But the technology piece of this puzzle was handled by ATF and Secret Service guys who took care of that stuff. So in the process of reviewing IMs and text messages and stuff like that, a couple of questions have come out that they want me to talk to you about. One of them is when it comes to this move of the Explorer stuff from PD to the American Legion, BSA required a form that BM was supposed to sign about everything being accounted for. And in a text message somewhere along the way, Joe makes reference to forwarding BM's signature on that form. Do you know if that ever happened?
No, I don't.
Okay, he never talked to you about it or anything? Because I think BM denied signing the form, and with that text message, we're trying to figure out, did BM sign the form?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no clue that Joe is handling all of that.
Okay.
So I have no clue what forms or where forms or who's signing what.
All right, and then another text message that popped up that is kind of put through a red flag was a conversation that sounds like with possibly you, Joe, maybe, about something about hiding the money before the village manager finds out. Do you know anything like that or any text like that? Something about there was a fear you guys were going to get in trouble with maybe some money and it was hide the money or something. Or it was either between Joe and you or Joe and BN or somebody like that. I think Joe's concern was, what we're guessing is that the village manager is going to find out there was an in and out money.
And that may have been,
Okay, do you know?
but I wouldn't have said hide the money.
Okay, do you know if he ever made a comment like that or something?
No, because anytime he borrowed, he'd let me know, and I'd be like, okay, fine, we'll put it on the tally, and, you know.
How much over the course of the years, because you guys have done Explorer Plus forever,
Right.
how much money do you think's been in and out?
I couldn't tell you. For a long time, I know he was having like $100 of his paycheck deposited into the Explorer account.
Okay.
You know, and sometimes it was, you know, they'd have an abundance of our money versus the other way around and stuff.
Okay.
When Joe switched it over to a 501c3,
Okay.
we set up a new account.
501c3, that's the not-for-profit?
Right.
Okay. So set up an account.
Right.
Would you move it from bank to bank or just a different account? Same bank?
No, it's at Harris Bank now.
Okay. Okay. Where was it originally? You remember?
Oh my God. I don't, because all the statements would always go to the PD.
Okay.
Yeah, everything always went to the PD.
Okay. All right, so you don't know anything about any comments about the hiding money or anything like that?
Yeah, no, I mean, if I was telling Joe anything about money, it was like, just let me know what, so I can put the money in.
Right.
It was never,
I haven't heard anything about the BN thing or
No.
anything like that.
Just a couple more questions, Your Honor.
You may.
Thank you. Sir, You mentioned before that this interview was obviously a lot longer than the 26 or so minutes we've just watched, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and in the remaining portion that was not played today, there were a number of topics that were covered that had nothing to do with the Explorers program or the bank account related to the Explorers program, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's
All
correct.
right, but for what we actually watched the last 26 or so minutes, does what we just watched include all of the portions of the interview in which the topics of the Explorers program and the bank account related to the Explorers program was discussed with the defendant?
To the best of my recollection from the longer video, yes, this is the sum and substance of our discussions about the Explorer Post.
Very good. Nothing further, Judge.
Cross-examination, gentlemen.
Nothing, Judge.
Well, Officer Jones, thank you very much. Step down, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next witness will be Thomas Letts.
You may call him.
Wait, anxiously wait.
Read the label.
Right.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay, bring it as close to your mouth as possible. It's terrible. It's the new equipment they installed in here. All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You
Can
may
you please,
inquire, Mr. Franklin.
can you please state your name and spell your name for the court reporter?
Thomas Lex, L-E-X.
And how are you employed?
I am employed as a sergeant with the Lake County Sheriff.
How long have you been with the Lake County Sheriff?
Just under 17 years.
Were you working with the sheriff in the fall of 2015 and the early part of 2016?
Yes.
What were your responsibilities and duties and title back then?
I was a detective with criminal investigations, and I was assigned to financial crime investigations at the time.
Did you become in a Lake County Sheriff investigation into the financial investigation of the Fox Lake Police Explorers Bank and their accounts?
Yes.
So this was an investigation that was originally handled by the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force, is that right?
Correct.
They began by investigating, well, the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force, they investigate officer-involved shootings and homicides that happen in Lake County.
Correct.
And so they got called out to investigate the death of Lieutenant Charles Joseph Gliniewicz.
Yes.
At some point, their investigation moved into looking into some financial accounts of the Fox Lake Explorer Post.
Correct.
And then sometime after Lieutenant Glinowicz's death was ruled a suicide, it was turned over to the sheriff.
Correct.
And so the sheriff then took over the financial investigation.
Yes.
And you were a part of that.
Correct, I was.
Part of what the task force did is they collected Lieutenant Glinowicz's personal cell phone, is that right?
Yes.
And they sent that to an FBI laboratory to perform an extraction of the cell phone.
Correct.
And an extraction would be pulling the data off of the cell phone
Yes.
and then putting it into a report that can later be read.
Yes.
That report was turned over to the sheriff and specifically you when the sheriff took over the investigation.
Yes.
And back in 2015, 2016, you had a chance to review that extraction report.
Yes, I did.
It was lengthy, correct?
Yes.
It pulls everything off the phone, photos, videos, text messages, everything.
Correct, it does.
Do you remember how long the report was? Was it perhaps like 6,000 pages or more?
It was a lot of pages, yes.
So specifically, prior to your testimony today, you reviewed a handful of Facebook messages and text messages prior to your testimony today.
Yes, I did.
And specifically, you reviewed some Facebook messages that were between Joe Glinowicz's Facebook account and an account belonging to Mel Gliniewicz.
Correct.
You also reviewed text messages between Joe's cell phone and a cell phone belonging to Melodie Gliniewicz.
Yes.
Joe had a contact in his phone under the name Mel, is that right?
Correct.
And the texts that we're going to talk about in a few minutes were between his phone and the contact Mel.
Correct.
So first, I'm going to direct your attention to the Facebook messages. Relative to your testimony today, you reviewed Facebook messages beginning July 31st, 2014, and going through August 1st of 2014.
Yes.
And that is reflected in People's 35, which I'm going to put on the screen. It'll be right in front of you. Are these some of the Facebook messages that you reviewed?
Yes, they were.
And at the top, you can see the participants listed,
Yes.
and that's where it shows Joe Gliniewicz and then Mel G space Gliniewicz.
Correct.
So I want to avoid the very first one, but starting with the second message, July 31st, do these messages say who the sender is?
Yes, they do.
And can you generally say how that's depicted?
Yeah, it's depicted in the specific one you're talking about with Joe's name at the end in the parentheses.
So there's a name in parentheses, and that's who the sender is?
Correct.
Okay. Can you just read into the record that first message sent from Joe Gliniewicz?
The one at 9:33?
Yes.
According to Scott, we can get Garden View for $110 a night, and he can try and upgrade us, or get Ocean View, not the Ocean side, for $175 a night, and upgrade us. Thoughts?
And then the next message is also sent from who?
From Joe.
And then he says what?
He's just saying dinner as a question.
Okay. And then can you just continue to go through the list, read to the bottom, identifying who the sender is for each?
Yes, so the next one at 10:29 shows Mel stating garden is fine. 10:29:55, also Mel at hospital picking mom up and taking her to Victory right now, UGG FML. 4:46, which would be on August 1st, also Mel. Oh, and I thought there was a ferry from Maui to Moloiki.
Moloiki for the record.
The
Okay.
next text is from Joe, LOL. I asked about ferry from Oahu to Maui. Also Joe at 5:56. There is to Moloki. At 6:04 from Mel, okay, we need to find costs and UF cars can go on and hours of operation. We will do a day trip with Dad then. And then at 6:52 from Joe, all done.
Okay, so then they continue after all done. Can you go to the next message that was sent on August 1st, 2014?
Yes, that's from Mel, says with as a question. And then at 6:53, Joe, wait, not the ferry yet. Also at 6:53 and 25 from Joe, flight and rental car from Maui done. Mel at 6:59, okay. Joe at 7:08, $360 for ferry and compact car, done. Smiley face. Mel at 7:12, you were awesome. Joe at 8:10, holy crap, we are up to $4,515.40, and that's not including the Maui hotel yet. In parentheses, waiting on Scott, end parentheses, or any food. And then at 8:10 from Mel, I have $7,000 set aside.
And then the final message on August 1st?
Yes, from Joe at 8:11. I know, was just adding things up here. I actually am being anal about it and have put it on a spreadsheet so it's all there in front of us. And we can print/leave a copy at home so the kids have the info, or your mom as well.
So these Facebook messages were found on Joe Glinowicz's phone, is that right?
Yes.
For purposes of today's hearing, did you also review messages between Joe Gliniewicz and the account for Mel Gliniewicz on June 1st of 2015?
Yes.
I'm going to show you People's 36. Are these those messages?
Yes.
And are they in the same format as People's 35, the prior messages you reviewed?
Yes.
And it, again, tells you who the sender is?
Correct.
Okay, so can you then go through the messages on June 1st, 2015?
Yes. So the first message at 2:09 is from Mel. DJ said book the ticket. American Airline website is the one I found for $625 from FAY to ORD on 6/3 to 6/6. Leaves at 5:20 a.m., arrives at LIJE at 9:20. Also Mel at 3:39 p.m. Not sure if you booked it yet, but when doing the return flight home, figured maybe the 10:30 return flight. That way I can get him there around 9 and be back up here in time for the wine walk. parentheses, plus he can say bye to everyone at boot camp before leaving, in parentheses. And then Joe at 3:41, haven't touched it yet, I'm swamped here at the moment. At 3:41 and 18 from Mel, okay, sorry. And then the next 3 entries from Joe are some type of a JPEG image, so some type of photo.
Okay. And then the last message on the screen.
The last message from Mel at 3:55, but I need your American login as well so that we can get the points.
So the extraction did not recover or at least show you what those pictures were that were being sent, is that right?
Well, that's correct. That's what we can see from this image.
Okay. So the messages continue on June 1st, 2015. So after the image of, after the message of, but I need your American login as well so we can get the points, can you just go on with what was sent next?
Sure, at 3:59, Joe sends another photo image, and then at 4:01, Mel says, I need your login info for that as well. 4:01:31, Joe replies, working on it. 4:01 and 42 from Mel, oh, okay, sorry. And then at 4:04:23, Joe responds with, GI Joe is 52% ampersand.
Messages then continue. Can you then go through how they continue after the GI Joe message?
Yes, a 5:01 and 26 from Joe. I was surprised we weren't sending him back Sunday the 7th. I don't think he has charged leave for weekends. 5:09:31 from Mel. When I asked him, he said the 3rd to the 6th, so that's what I'm going with. At 5:09:48 from Joe, you with the colon. 5:10 and 23 from Mel, and I think they do charge him because he was charged 5 days for Dad's funeral, and that would have been Wednesday to Sunday. At 5:11:51 from Mel, there is a flight that leaves CHI at 3:53 Saturday, so that would give him some time to hang. He said as long as he gets back by mids, he's good. At 5:16 and 42 from Joe, you with a colon. 5:16 and 55 from Joe, I'll get him there. 5:19 and 25 from Mel. Mel sent a sticker. At 5:21 and 25 also from Mel. Trying to book and I'm not sure I can put DJ's name and such because of the AA points with a sad face. 5:33 and 14 from Joe. I didn't think we could, but always worth a try.
Okay, and then continuing on with People's Group Exhibit 36, can you finish up with the messages that were sent on June 1st, 2015?
5:35 and 31 from Mel, everything points to you can. 5:36 from Mel, just have to figure out if I should, but the advantage number in when booking since his name doesn't match that account. At 5:38:56 from Joe, try that or call them. At 5:44:06 from Mel, if I leave the AA number out, it works. Now the seating assignments is another story. He's middle aisle on most, parentheses, so I don't have to pay upgrade on seat, end parentheses. And the only one that isn't allowing seat assignments is the last flight for his turn, which scares me because did they overbook or something? Ugh, might scrap and start over. 6:22:26 from Mel, be sure to check your work email for DJ's itinerary and stuff so he can get the info he needs for his leave and get his tickets. At 6:27 and 19 from Joe, got it, do you remember the summary of, it says WVENTS, packing waiver we made for boot camp that had the babysitting crap on it if someone was kicked out, question. I can't find an original copy to put up on website, and ends UGG. At 8:06:48 from Mel, did you get the airline itinerary yet? And at 8:07:44, Joe responds, yes, I did, and forwarded it to his GWiz email account.
And so again, these messages were found on Joe Gliniewicz's cell phone, and all of the messages you just read in People's 36 were sent on June 1st, 2015.
Correct.
Finally, People's 37. People's 37 are text messages that were found on Joe's phone. Are these some of the text messages that you found on the phone?
Yes.
There were thousands of messages on the phone, is that correct?
Correct.
Not just between Joe and the defendant, but Joe and everybody.
Correct.
So we're just going to talk about these. These were all sent on the same day. What day was that?
These are stamped as 4/14/2015.
Okay. And again, do they delineate who is sending the message between Joe and Mel?
It does. It says to Mel or from Mel.
Okay. So starting at the top, going down, can you read these messages and again identifying who the sender is?
Yes, they're all on 4/14/2015. First one is at 80241 to Mel. I talked to him again and now thinks this is a knee-jerk reaction and that when we put in our 2 weeks or set a retirement date, then he will move it. At 80355 from Mel, OMFG, and in the meantime, she can do what she wants. Fucking A. At 806 and 41 from Mel, maybe seeing as we are ARE and then OUR on 403C, she can't touch the money, and maybe a letter on file from Behan stating all is ours and the PD and Village have no claim to it. 812 and 47 to Mel, nope, as long as we are sponsored by the PD and after she makes the Village structure change, she will have the means and ability to do as she wishes. 813 and 26 from Mel, does he understand, only it was spelled with an I, that then question. At 81404 from Mel, and maybe we need to hide the funds somehow. 814 and 47 to Mel, yes, he just got off the phone with her. As it sits, the BMO account from Village account to just the Explorers. 815 and 35 to Mel, changed from A and then 3 periods. That was after taking a picture of my screen. 816 and 54 to Mel, I just got a quote, an available credit, end quote, letter today from BMO, and they changed the title to Fox Lake Explorer Post 300, ellipses, took police out of it. 822 and 11 from Mel, so with that change, she can't get to it, can she? 824 and 49 to Mel, according to BSA policy, the sponsor can. If it's not a Village account, she can't get to it directly. The bank will tell her, no, you're not entitled to it. At 827.47, well, at least there is that. I'm sorry, that's from Mel. At 828.21 to Mel, yep.
So all of these messages were sent between Joe and the defendant's phone on April 14, 2015.
Correct.
No further questions, Judge.
Cross-examination, Mr. Morrison.
I'm sorry, is it Detective Lex or something, Sergeant?
It's Sergeant now, sir.
Sorry, Sergeant Lex. Regarding the extraction report, my understanding, you've already said it's 6,000 pages or so, right?
Correct.
And all sorts of text messages and face messages between Joe and other people.
That's
right?
correct.
The exhibits that we just saw were some Facebook messages and then some SMS text messages just between Joe and Mel Gliniewicz, right?
Correct.
That extraction report, I think, ran from August of 2014 through September 2015. Does that sound right to you?
Sounds right. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
And you reviewed all the text messages between Joe and Mel, correct?
Correct.
And there were over 1,500, just from that time period, there were over 1,500 text messages between Joe and Mel on that phone, correct?
Yes, correct.
And there were over 500 Facebook messages between Joe and Mel, correct?
Correct.
So of the more than 2,000 messages between Mel and Joe, you've chosen 3. The 3 chains, at least.
I didn't choose them. The state did.
Okay, good point. Now let's go over those. The first one, July 31st, 2014, it's a chat between Joe and Mel about the Hawaii trip, correct?
Correct.
And does it say anything in here about where the money was coming from to pay for this Hawaii trip?
I don't believe so.
Does it say anything in here about, does any evidence in here that Joe is saying anything to Mel that he's actually using the Fox Lake Explorer card to purchase some of these things for the Hawaii trip?
No?
And she said at the bottom, I think one of the last ones you read was, she said, I have $7,000 set aside.
Correct, she
Right.
did.
And that was consistent with the financial records in this case, correct?
Would have been.
The June 1st, 2015 chat was a chat between Joe and Mel about booking a plane ticket for DJ.
Yes.
DJ is one of their 4 sons, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he was intimately involved in the Fox Lake Explorer program, correct?
I believe so.
Did your investigation uncover the reason why DJ was coming home?
For those texts?
Not in those texts. It doesn't say anything in those texts about why he's coming
Correct.
home, does it? The other investigation that we've got, like, I don't know how many thousands of pages we got in this case.
Right.
The other investigation that either you did or maybe Harris or Gregory or Kaiser, do you know of anything in the investigation that told a story about why DJ was coming home?
I don't recall.
Do you recall that one of his best friends from the Explorer program in his 20s was tragically killed in a car accident?
No, I don't.
Do you recall that the family of this boy that was with DJ in the Explorers program wanted to have the Explorers do what they call an honor guard at his funeral? Does that refresh your recollection?
Not offhand. It's been a long time.
So you don't know if that's why that plane ticket was purchased?
Not offhand, no.
The last text chain that you talked about was the April 14th of 2015, the one where Mel says at one point, and maybe we need to hide the funds somehow. You recall that?
Yes.
Are you familiar with any aspects of the financial investigation in this case?
Which parts?
Let me ask you specifically. Are you familiar with the fact that this was on April 14th of 2015? Are you familiar with the fact that as of April 1st of 2015, Joe Gliniewicz already moved the bank account from the U.S. Bank to a BMO Harris Bank? Are you familiar with that?
Possibly, but it's been a long time since I've seen those records.
Are you familiar with any of the 501c3 documents that Joe had generated in February of 2015? Just talked about a little bit in these text messages, in which Joe was setting up a separate 501c3 organization, separate and apart from the police departments.
Again, I might have, but it's been a long time since I've seen the documents.
And at the same time, strike that. Do you remember, when you think back at this investigation, do you remember that during this period of time, beginning a part of 2015, Joe Gliniewicz was working with the chief of police, Michael Behan, the mayor, Donnie Schmidt, and members of the Boy Scouts of America to move the Fox Lake Police Explorer program from the Fox Lake Police Department to the American Legion? Do you recall that?
Do I recall which part? Can you restate the question, please?
Do you recall that during this period of time, the first 3 months in 2015, that Joe Gliniewicz was actively attempting to move the Fox Lake Explorer post from the police to the American Legion?
I don't recall right now, but it's been a long time since we've seen everything.
Did you, in addition to the text messages between Mel and Joe on April 14th of 2015, did you get a chance to review what is marked as Defendant's Exhibit Number 21, which is the full extraction report, Joe's text messages, not only to Mel on that date, but Joe's messages to other people?
I may have.
And when you reviewed that, did you see that not only was Joe talking with Mel about moving accounts and things, he was also talking to Chief of Police Behan, about the same thing, correct?
If I could see it, I could verify that.
Sure. I'm gonna show you what's been marked as defense exhibit number 21, and, just take a look at this, and these are the ones that you have to go in reverse chronological.
Okay.
So it starts from the bottom, and just review it real quick, and let me know when you reviewed, especially the comments to Chief Bean, and then there's one more on there.
Do you have it that you can pull it up on the screen at all, or not?
Sure. It's 21. Like, for instance, are you finished reviewing? Or are you still?
Yeah, but if we can leave it up there so I can read it a little easier, that would help.
Sure.
Which specifically do you
So
want to
with,
look at?
on 1854, can you go to 1854? Do you see the in the middle there, there's text to and from LFL, exec, NEIC, do you see that?
Are you talking about that line marked 5559?
5559, yep.
Okay.
So it says, so I will put in the paperwork to switch you over to the Legion. I will tell the office you will most likely switch back. You see that?
I do.
And then thanks for all your hard work and dedication. And then, go to page 1852. On the bottom, 5526.
Okay.
Okay, so we need, again, this is from, that person appears to be somebody from Boy Scouts of America, correct?
It may have been, I don't recall from that long ago.
But the one at 5526 says, okay, so we need an in-person meeting with the chief. Brandon and I are in Macon today. We would like to talk through the concerns of moving the charter. Again, another conversation with somebody about moving the charter, right?
Okay.
And then above that, 5519, another text from this person saying, I am trying to balance the district's concerns and your concerns. So I think if Chief can just talk to Brandon and I, we can figure it out. And then right above that, Joe responds, correct?
Yes.
And then I'm just trying to find being. can't seem to find the text with me. But suffice it to say, there was conversations, the exhibit that you saw from the state, that was conversations just between Mel and Joe. But Joe was having conversations with other people about moving this chart, the Fox Lake Explorer chart.
Correct.
All right, no further questions, thank you.
Just brief on Judge.
You may redirect.
Thank you. All right, so Mr. Morrison just asked you a question about message 5526 from LFL exec NEIC to Joe. You remember reading that one
Yes.
at the bottom of the page? So they go up chronologically, so the ones above that are later in time, right?
Yes.
So 2 messages later, can you read the message that Joe sent to Mel?
You talking about line 5524?
Yes.
Crap. Now Aaron is saying that her and Brandon need to have a meeting with the chief to address his concerns. WTF question mark.
Does Mel respond to that message?
Yes, on line 5523, craptastic.
And then Joe sends an LOL back to Mel.
Correct, on line 5522.
All right, just going back briefly to the messages you testified to on direct. The messages sent on June 1st appear to be about purchasing a plane ticket for DJ, as Mr. Morrison asked you.
Correct.
And from the content of the messages, it appears Melodie purchased that ticket.
Correct.
And then the messages that occurred after these later in time on April 14th between Joe and Mel, they don't name a person by name, but they appear to talk about concern about somebody at the village having access to the bank account.
Correct.
No further questions.
Marie Cross?
At the time Melody said the phrase about hiding the funds, the bank account, Joe already moved the bank account, didn't he?
If I look back, I could tell you if I saw the details.
That's already in evidence. Nothing further.
All right, Sergeant, thank you. You
Thank
may
you, sir.
step down. Thank you.
Thanks. Counselor, you want your...
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Publish them. They didn't admit them.
Judge, the state has no additional witnesses or evidence. We just formally admit peoples 1 through 38, all of which were referenced by the different witnesses.
All right, they'll be admitted, and no further evidence in aggravation.
Correct.
Any evidence in mitigation?
Yes, call Sergeant Keith Kaiser, please.
You may, Sergeant, you may step up to the stand. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Sergeant, you may take the stand and make yourself comfortable. And pull the microphone towards you. Cannot be stretched anymore, but nobody wants to fix it. So,
May I proceed, Judge?
You may proceed.
Sir, will you please state your name and spell your last name?
Keith Kaiser, Kaiser,
By whom are you employed?
Lake County Sheriff's Office.
What is your current position?
I'm a sergeant,
Where are you assigned now?
Patrol Division.
When did you first start in law enforcement?
2001.
And before you worked for the sheriff's office, did you work for any other law enforcement agencies?
I worked for the Lindenhurst Police Department until 2004 when I started with the Sheriff's Office.
And where did you start when you went to the sheriff's office? What division?
Started with the Court Security Division.
How long did you do that detail?
I believe that was 8 months.
And after that, where were you assigned?
I was assigned to the Highway Patrol Division
How long were you in Highway Patrol?
until 2009.
And what did you do after Highway Patrol?
2009, I transferred to be a detective in the Criminal Investigations Division
And how long did you remain a detective in the Criminal Investigations Division at the Lake County Sheriff's Department?
until 2016.
And in 2016, were you made a sergeant?
Yes,
And where were you assigned in 2016?
I was assigned to the Patrol Division and then subsequently the Training Division.
And did you go back and forth between, did you go patrol, training, and then back to patrol?
Essentially, yes.
So back in November of 2015, you were a detective in the Criminal Investigation Division of the Lake County Sheriff's Office, correct?
Correct.
And when you were a detective with the Criminal Investigations Division back in November of 2015, were you one of about 4 detectives assigned to the financial investigation regarding the Fox Lake Police Explorer funds?
I was.
And you were one, and Sergeant Lex, who we just saw, he was one of the other ones, right?
Correct.
And do you recall whether you were assigned to perform this investigation either before or after Lieutenant Joseph Gliniewicz died?
After.
And do you recall whether you were assigned to conduct this investigation either before or after it was determined from authorities that Joe Gliniewicz's death was a suicide versus a homicide?
After.
And was one of your duties to follow some leads, go out in the community and visit various establishments where the Fox Lake Police Explorer funds were used to determine if there was any evidence that Melodie Gliniewicz was the one that was using those funds at those establishments?
Yes.
And as part of your investigation, did you note that there were hundreds of purchases made at the Volo Starbucks using Fox Lake Police Explorer funds?
There were purchases, I'm not sure of the exact number.
And after you saw the number of those purchases at Starbucks, whatever it was, did you go to that Starbucks to see if you can find out whether or not Melodie Gliniewicz ever used the funds at that establishment?
Yes.
What did you do as part of this investigation?
I spoke with, I believe, the manager of the Starbucks. I was inquiring as to whether or not they had any video surveillance of the transactions that we had listed from that Starbucks, and which there were none. And I inquired as whether anyone identified Mrs. Gliniewicz as coming to the store using the credit card to make the purchases.
Okay. And first of all, did you, when you talked to this manager, she said there's no video footage, did you ask her whether or not she is familiar with Lieutenant Joseph Gliniewicz?
Yes.
And was she familiar with him?
Yes, she was.
How was she familiar with him?
Because he frequented the Starbucks frequently.
Okay. And of course, this was after the news of his death and the investigation and everything. And did you ask this manager whether or not she was familiar with Melodie Gliniewicz from seeing her on TV?
I'm not sure if I specifically asked that. I don't recall.
Did you ask that person whether she knew or had any evidence that Mrs. Gliniewicz ever used the card at that Volo Starbucks?
Yes.
And what was the answer to that question?
No.
And did you ask this manager whether she knew of anybody else at Starbucks that recognized Mrs. Gliniewicz as ever being at that Starbucks and using the Fox Lake Explorer cards at Starbucks?
I don't recall if I specifically asked if anyone else.
As part of your investigation, were you able to uncover any evidence whatsoever that Melodie Gliniewicz ever used a Fox Lake Explorer funds at the Volo Starbucks?
No, I was not.
Did your investigation also lead you to a place called Cindy's, Sindys Signature Hair Salon in Lindenhurst?
Yes.
And why did you go there?
There are transactions on the credit card register that showed the card had been used at Cindy's.
And it was a hair salon?
Yes.
And did Joe Gliniewicz have any hair?
I don't recall.
But Mel Gliniewicz has hair, right?
Yes. Yes.
So you figured that might be a place where she used the card, right?
Trying to determine who had used the card.
Okay, when you went there, did you actually meet with the owner, Cindy?
Yes, I did.
And what did your investigation entail?
I believe I provided a grand jury subpoena to the owner of the business and asked for any documents relating to the transactions and asked if she remembered the transaction specifically and if she knew Mr. Gliniewicz or Mrs. Gliniewicz.
Okay. And what did she tell you about whether or not she recognized and knew Lieutenant Joe Gliniewicz?
Yes, she knew Joe Gliniewicz from frequenting her hair salon.
And why would Joe Gliniewicz frequent that hair salon?
I believe he had body waxing completed at the salon.
And did you ask the owner of that establishment, Cindy, at Cindy's Hair Salon, whether she knew or recognized Melodie Gliniewicz?
Specifically coming into the business, she did not.
As part of your investigation, were you able to identify any employee of Cindy's Signature Hair Salon who recognized Melodie Gliniewicz as a customer of that salon?
I did not.
And did your investigation uncover any evidence that Melodie Gliniewicz ever used any Fox Lake Explorer funds to purchase anything at Cindy's Hair Salon?
I did not.
Did your investigation also take you to the Fox Lake Theater?
Yes.
And why did you go to the Fox Lake Theater as part of this investigation?
There were transactions that had been made on the Explorer account at the Fox Lake Theater.
About 93 of them, right?
Not sure the exact number.
And tell the judge what your investigation entailed at the Fox Lake Theater.
I spoke with the manager of the Fox Lake Theater, asking her the same questions as the other businesses. And the manager informed me that some of the Gliniewicz children were employed at the Fox Lake Theater. And if Mr. Gliniewicz went to the movies with his children, he wouldn't have to pay admission for the movies because the tickets would be comped and any of the transactions that would have been made for food. There was no video surveillance available of any of the transactions. And the manager saw Mr. Gliniewicz at the movie theater quite frequently.
Okay. And on the other hand, did the manager recognize Melodie Gliniewicz as anybody who frequented the Fox Lake Theater?
She did not.
Did your investigation undercover the identity of anybody at Fox Lake Theater who recognized Melodie Gliniewicz as visiting that theater and making purchases?
I did not.
And did your investigation entail any evidence whatsoever that Melodie Gliniewicz ever spent one dime of Fox Lake Police Explorer funds at the Fox Lake movie theater?
I did not.
Did you learn that there were some purchases at the Lindenhurst Health and Fitness Center in Lindenhurst?
I did.
And did your investigation learn that Melodie Gliniewicz was a member there, but that Joe Gliniewicz was not?
I believe Mrs. Gliniewicz was a member there. I'm not sure if Mr. Gliniewicz was a member.
And specifically, did you notice that there was a charge of $175 made on the Fox Lake Police Explorer account that was purchased on Christmas Eve, December 24th of 2013?
Yes.
And did you, as part of your investigation, serve a grand jury subpoena on the Lindenhurst Health and Fitness Center?
I did.
And did you receive a copy of the receipt from that transaction on December 24th of 2013?
I did.
Showing you what's remarked as defendant's exhibit number 5, does that appear to be a true and correct copy of that exhibit?
It does.
And does that exhibit at the bottom appear to be signed by Charles J. Gliniewicz?
Yes.
And I know you're not a handwriting expert, but did you, as part of your investigation, compare that signature to known signature samples of Charles Gliniewicz?
I did.
And did they at least appear to be the same?
It appeared to be the same signature from a Fox Lake Police Department memorandum.
And so it appears that Joe Gliniewicz went to the health club where the defendant was a member and purchased her a gift certificate for $175 for Christmas.
I don't know whether it was a Christmas present or not, but it was purchased on the 24th.
Any evidence that the defendant, Melodie Gliniewicz, had anything to do with that purchase other than probably the next day at Christmas getting a nice gift certificate from her husband?
No.
That appeared to you to be some type of a conspiracy to take money from the Fox Lake Explorer program?
Objection.
I'm sorry.
I'll withdraw it. Any other evidence, strike that. Was there any evidence that you uncovered during your investigation at the Lindenhurst Fitness Center that Melodie Gliniewicz ever used any funds at that establishment where she was a member? Well, I'm sorry, strike the, I gotta ask another question. Did your investigation uncover any evidence that Melodie Gliniewicz used Fox Lake Police Explorer funds at any time at her club, the Lindenhurst Health and Fitness Center?
Did not.
You reviewed, at least briefly, the FBI investigative report in this case, correct?
Yes.
And one of the places other than where you listed was that there were hundreds of charges from a Dunkin' Donuts, right?
Yes.
And did you ever uncover any evidence in your investigation that Melodie Gliniewicz ever made any purchases with the Fox Lake Explorer card at any Dunkin' Donuts?
I did not.
One of the other items listed in the FBI report was purchases on the Fox Lake Explorer card for athletic event registration and hormonal supplements. My question to you is, did your investigation uncover any evidence whatsoever that Melodie Gliniewicz made any of those purchases?
It did not.
Another item besides Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks is generally just generically restaurants. I think there's 453 charges at restaurants for, again, thousands of dollars. Did your investigation, Sergeant, reveal any evidence that Melodie Gliniewicz made any of those purchases at those restaurants using Fox Lake Explorer funds?
It did not.
Finally, one of the other items on the FBI report was for adult entertainment, pornography, and dating websites. Over 66 charges. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
And did your investigation reveal that my client, Melodie Gliniewicz, had anything to do with any of those charges for dating websites or pornography using the Fox Lake Police Explorer card?
It did not.
That's all I have.
Redirect? Cross, no.
All of the interviews that you were just asked about at the 4 locations occurred on late November 2015, is that right?
Yes.
Did you go to every restaurant that was billed to the Fox Lake Explorer account to find out if Joe and/or Melodie went to the establishment?
I did not.
Did you go to anywhere besides the 4 you just talked about?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so Starbucks in Volo, the Fox Lake Theater, right?
Correct.
Cindy's Hair Salon,
Yes.
and the Life and Health Fitness Center.
Lindenhurst. Health and
Lindenhurst,
Fitness.
sorry.
Correct.
So you didn't go to every single place that had a purchase
Correct.
and find out if Joe and or Melody went?
Correct.
Why not?
On the bank account, the items were listed as McDonald's with no specific restaurant location, whereas the businesses I went to were known locations that had the information available on the bank statement.
So if the bank statement didn't have a specific location, you weren't going to go to every McDonald's in the area to find out if Joe or Melody went there?
Correct.
Specifically with respect to the theater, the Fox Lake Theater, the manager that you spoke to said that Joe frequented it and often with his children?
Yes.
And while she said Melody didn't frequent it, she didn't say she never saw Melody, did she? She said would you report, or let me just ask you this way. Did she say that she did see Melody, but it was rare?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And that was documented in your report?
Yes.
So just to be clear, when we're talking about your investigation didn't uncover evidence that the card was used at a restaurant by Melody, because you didn't go to these restaurants, no one from the sheriff went to these restaurants to find out who was using the card for every single restaurant purchase.
Correct.
No further questions, Judge.
Redirect?
Well, if you weren't gonna do that, who was?
I don't believe anyone did.
What's up?
Recross?
No.
You may step down, sir. Thank you. Good to see you.
Judge, these are our exhibits.
Those are your exhibits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
How about, I'm given exhibits, but perhaps from the defense point of view, you think I should be asked to admit them?
As to what?
To admit those exhibits that I was handed?
I asked to admit them previously, Judge. I thought they were.
I know yours, they're been admitted.
Yeah.
I thought I made clear at the beginning that there was a stipulation. I'm gonna move to admit defense exhibits 1 through 21, please.
They'll be admitted.
And Judge, that's a binder for you. I just have the originals. I think the court probably wants originals.
Probably,
I can
if
tempt
they
those.
don't want this voluminous binder, they have no place to put it.
I'll take that.
Costs you money, right? All right.
Yeah, we gave that all, but we'll make sure you.
Do you have another witness?
Yes, we just have 3 short character witnesses, then we'll follow you.
Okay, you may call.
Your Honor, defense calls Kyle Buckhart.
Okay, you may call him. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, all truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. You may take the stand, make yourself comfortable, sit back, relax, and after this witness will take a little recess because courtroom personnel need a little break. Okay?
It's fine, Your Honor.
All right.
Can you please state your name for the court?
Kyle Buckhart,
And how do you spell your last name, Mr. Buckhart?
Buchardt.
And where do you live, Mr. Buckhart?
Wonder Lake,
And what is your marital status?
married,
What do you do for a living, Mr. Buckhart?
auto mechanic,
How long have you been an auto mechanic?
5 years.
Okay, and what educational background do you have, Mr. Buckhart?
High school diploma with 1 year of college and military training.
Where's your 1 year at college?
UW Platteville,
And you mentioned you were in the military. How long were you in the military, Mr. Buckhart?
4 years,
And in what branch of the military?
Army,
And where did you serve?
Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
And are you currently still with the military in any capacity?
Technically, yes.
How's that?
I'm on IRR currently.
Okay, and that's reserves, I believe?
Individual ready reserves.
Thank you. You're here in this, as a character witness for Melodie Gliniewicz, and you know Melodie Gliniewicz?
Yes, I do.
How long have you known Melodie Gliniewicz?
Better side of 10 years.
Okay, and how did you get to know Melodie Gliniewicz?
I've known her through the Explorer program. Go ahead.
What role did she have with the Explorers, Mr. Buckhart?
She was an advisor for us.
Okay. Did you also know, you knew her through the Explorers, you know her on a personal basis?
Yes, I've met with her outside of there.
Okay. You mentioned you knew her through the Explorers. Can you describe what involvement she had when she was with the Explorers?
I mean, she was an advisor. She was there doing whatever it is we were doing that day. She was there doing it too, instructing us in where we're going wrong, etc.
Do you know, with regards to the Explorers, do you know who was involved with financial matters that involved the Explorer group?
To my knowledge, it was just Joe.
And when you mean Joe, who do you mean by that?
Joe Gliniewicz.
Okay. In your time with the Explorers, was Melodie Gliniewicz involved in any financial matters with the Explorers?
Not that I'm aware of.
From your knowing, your personal knowledge of Melodie Gliniewicz, would you call her an honest person?
Yes.
Would you call Melodie Gliniewicz a trustworthy person?
Yes.
Would you say that Melodie Gliniewicz possesses high levels of integrity?
Yes.
Mr. Buckhart, excuse me. How is Melodie Gliniewicz perceived by other Explorers?
She was very firm but fair.
When you say firm, what do you mean by that?
She'd tell you what you needed to hear, not what you wanted to hear, whatever that may be.
And with regards to the others in the Explorers program, did those people find Melodie Gliniewicz to be honest?
Yes.
Did those people find Melodie Gliniewicz to be trustworthy?
Yes.
And did those same people find Melodie Gliniewicz to possess high levels of integrity?
Yes.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor?
Cross, if any?
Just briefly, Judge. You didn't have anything to do with the Explorer financials, did you?
No, I did not.
And you certainly didn't have a detailed knowledge of who did deal with the financials of the Explorers.
To me, it was just Joe Gliniewicz.
Right, just from what you saw.
Yeah.
But you don't have a detailed knowledge outside of what you knew.
No.
Nothing further.
Redirect, if any?
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Buckhart. You may step down, thank you. We'll take a small recess, give everybody a chance, and we'll return shortly.
Thank you.
right. Mr. Morrison, Mr. Russos, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, I'd like to call to the stand Ann Buckhart.
Ms. Buckhart, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? You may take the stand, make yourself comfortable, pull the microphone as close to your mouth as possible. You may proceed, Mr. Russos.
Can you please state your name for the court?
Ann Buckhart,
And how do you spell your last name, Ms. Buckhart?
Buchardt,
And where do you live?
Wonder Lake, Illinois.
And what is your marital status?
Married.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm currently a medical assistant,
How long have you been a medical assistant?
approximately 6 years.
And what is your educational background?
I have my high school degree, I have my certification in medical assisting, and I'm currently working on my associate's in paralegal studies.
Now, you're here as a character witness for Melodie Gliniewicz. You do know Melodie Gliniewicz, correct?
Correct.
And how do you know Melodie Gliniewicz?
She was my advisor when I was in Police Explorers, and then she became more like family to me after that.
Okay, how long have you known Melodie Gliniewicz?
Upwards of 10 years.
Now, you mentioned that you met her through Explorers. Do you also know her outside of Explorers on a personal basis?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe what Melodie Gliniewicz' involvement was when she was with the Explorers?
When she was with the Explorers, she was an advisor, and she took it upon herself because I was one of the very few female explorers in our post. She kind of took me under her wing to kind of help guide me through everything because many people do see law enforcement as a man's world, so to speak, and Mel knew that there were some adjustments that needed to be made for females, and she made sure I was always comfortable with what I was doing and making sure that I was completely understanding it.
And how long were you with the Explorers, Ms. Buckhart?
From 2012 till 2015 when it disbanded.
And then, did your time in the, you mentioned that you're a med tech?
Correct, medical assistant.
Medical assistant. Did your time in the Explorers help you in your career right now as a medical technician?
Yes, sir.
And you also mentioned that you're studying to be a paralegal.
Correct.
Has your time in Explorers helped you with your studies as being a paralegal also, to become a paralegal?
Very much so, yes.
Going back to Explorers, do you know who was involved with financial matters that involved the Explorers?
From my understanding, it would be Lieutenant Gliniewicz.
And then also in your time with the Explorers, was Melodie Gliniewicz involved in any financial matters?
Not to my knowledge.
From your knowledge and your knowing Melodie Gliniewicz through these years, would you say that Melodie Gliniewicz was an honest person?
Very much so.
A trustworthy person?
Yes.
Would you say that Melodie Gliniewicz possesses high levels of integrity?
Yes, sir.
How was, you've talked about how your relationship with Melodie Gliniewicz. Could you tell us about how Melodie Gliniewicz was perceived by other explorers when you were an explorer?
Just as it was previously stated earlier, she was very firm but fair. She made sure that you understood what was going on, and she would correct you. But if it was something she didn't know, she would make sure she understood it before she corrected you on it.
Regarding other explorers or other people in the Explorer program, did those people find Melodie Gliniewicz to be honest?
Yes.
Did those same people find Melodie Gliniewicz to be trustworthy?
Yes, sir.
Did those people also find that Melodie Gliniewicz possessed high levels of integrity?
Yes, sir.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor?
Cross-examination?
Very briefly, Judge. You didn't have anything to do with the financials of the Fox Lake Explorer post, did you?
No, sir.
And obviously, if it's not within your knowledge, you can't testify about the details of who dealt with the financials of the Fox Lake Explorer post.
Correct.
No further questions.
Anything further? No?
Nothing further.
You may step down. Thank you. Next witness, please.
Your Honor, the defense would call Sarah Davies.
You may so do. Ms. Davis, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Smith, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, would you state your full name and spell your last name for the court?
Sarah Davies, Davies.
And where do you reside?
Lakeville,
And how long have you lived there?
10 years.
Okay. And what's your highest level of education?
Graduated with a BA.
You know Melodie Gliniewicz?
Yes,
How long have you known her?
just short of 13 years.
And how did you come to know her? What was the circumstance under which you met?
Friends of friends,
And is Mel someone you saw socially?
yes.
Okay. And what sort of circumstances did you hang out with her socially?
I used to have a coffee clutch that she would come to, but before that, dinners, breakfasts, phone calls, socially, I mean, things that you do with friends.
And about how often did you see each other? Or do you see each other?
Gosh, I would say a few times a month.
And you said you had a coffee clutch with her. How many people were involved in that?
About 8 to 10,
Everyone was on good terms and friendly?
or else they wouldn't be at my house.
Okay. And how would you describe Melodie Gliniewicz as a person?
Wonderful. She presents herself as very strong, guiding. She is knowledgeable, and if she doesn't know, she will find out. She helps.
Do you have any reason to question her honesty, trustworthiness, or integrity?
None.
Anybody you know that hung out with her socially would say the same thing?
No, they all would agree that she is that.
Thank you.
No questions.
You may sit down, Ms. Davis. Thank you. Next witness, please.
Your Honor, that concludes our evidence and mitigation.
Right. Does the defendant wish to exercise her right to elocution?
Sure, do you want to do that before? Sure.
Uh, Whenever you are ready.
Ready?
I take full responsibility in knowing at one point my husband was commingling his funds with the Explorer account. When my husband would ask me to write a check back to the account, I would do that. And the Explorer program was a central part of our lives. I came on so that the females that were in the program would be able to participate in competitions. I loved the kids who came through the program as they were, and many still are, what I call my bonus kids. I enjoyed seeing them use the skills they had gained in the program in their adult lives, the things I would have wanted to, sorry, sir. The last thing I would have wanted to see was the program that had enriched so many young lives. And I would write checks to the Explorer account because the alternative of inaction would be worse. Is what I did prohibited the money that was donated to the program from the donors. Any other result would be unacceptable to me. I didn't know my husband was commingling his own money into the Explorer account until he asked me to write a check back into the account. And I never knew the full amount that he was commingling until after his death. In regard to the Hawaii trip, I didn't know my husband was planning a surprise honeymoon until I discovered it in April 2014, that he had deposited $7,000 into my account to use for the trip. When I asked my husband where the money came from, he told me he took a loan out on his retirement account through work. I didn't know the amount of the loan, and I didn't even know where he had deposited the loan to. But at some point after the trip, my husband asked me for an additional check to be written to the Explorer account to offset what was spent. Again, I paid the amount to prevent it from becoming a theft and to protect those donations that were made to the program. The one and only time I ever personally made a transaction on the Explorer account was at my husband's instructions to purchase an airline ticket to bring our son home for a funeral for a former Explorer of the program who had passed away in a horrific car accident in May of 2015. The deceased Explorer was one of my son's closest friends, and the family had requested that my son be there to serve as part of the honor guard with the rest of the Explorer Post, who did the same. I'd like to make it clear, I never took a cent from the Explorer Fund, no matter what has been recorded. Life since my husband's death and this prosecution has not only affected my life, but those of my children. All of us have been subjected to a litany of death threats. The media not only released our address and our phone number, but for good measure, they released my social security number and my driver's license number, resulting in a multitude of my accounts being breached. Further, I received notification from my bank that they decided they were going to cancel my credit card because for them, doing business with me was a reputational risk to their company. But they took it further and they shut my savings and checking account down and then turned around and shut the savings accounts and checkings account down of all my children, preventing them from getting their funds from their direct deposits through work. And as hard as I've tried, and I have filled out more job applications than I can count, I am still unable to obtain employment just because of my name. But I think the worst is probably the continual desecration of my husband's grave. And there have been many times that we arrive and everything is broken and strewn about. But I think the worst was when I took my youngest son, and as we approached, yet again, everything was broken. And then there was a knife stabbed into his grave. At this point, all we can do is continue to clean it up because we know it's going to keep happening. Perhaps people will disagree with how my husband managed finances, which is the crux of the matter here. And I will note there is a difference between malice and a lack of skill. But please, let his final resting place be a place to bring peace to his family and loved ones. I ask your honor to consider all of this in your sentencing and to allow me to move on with my life. It has been turned upside down since September 1st, 2015. Thank you.
Here's a couple minutes. All right, the Peckham state's argument, recommendation.
Thank you, Judge. Court's well aware of all the different sentencing options the court has. I'm going to talk and focus on one of the options the court knows it has, and that's whether or not second chance probation is appropriate for the defendant. It's not. This is not a case worthy of second chance probation. Whatever sentence the court imposes, it should be one of a felony conviction. The defendant didn't have to make a statement just now, but she chose to. And in her first words, she says that she took full responsibility. I think her statements in court do not reflect that. I think she is minimizing clearly the depth and scope of her knowledge and awareness that the Explorer funds were being used from 2009 through 2015. She says she first found out when she was asked to write the first check. The first check that was presented here in court today this morning was from September of 2010. 5 years before any charges were brought in this case, 5 years before anything was found out about the financials of the Explorer Fund. Her statement today contrasts greatly with the interview she gave on October 8, 2015, when she talks in an almost joking, nonchalant manner.
Weeks, they do remain near record highs.
Jones, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir, I do.
You may take this stand, make yourself comfortable. Pull the microphone as close to your mouth as possible. Oh, it doesn't reach your height. Maybe Mr. Facklam's and some others. Mr. Cahill, you may proceed,
All right,
sir.
thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir, could you please state your name and spell your name for the record?
My name is Andrew Jones, Andrew Jones.
I'm sorry, thank you. And you are a retired police officer, is that correct?
Yes, sir, I am.
And for about a little over 30 years, you were a police officer primarily with the Vernon Hills Police Department, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And many of those years served as an investigator, is that right?
Yes.
And as part of those duties, you were also an investigator with the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, and I want to just move right to the time period here. September and October of 2015, as part of your duties as an investigator with the task force, were you involved in an investigation pertaining to the death of Lieutenant Joe Gliniewicz of the Fox Lake Police Department?
Yes, sir, I was.
And did part of that investigation also kind of morph into an inquiry into the Fox Lake Police Explorers Program?
Yes, it did.
All right, and part of those investigatory duties, did it involve the specific involvement of Lieutenant Gliniewicz and his wife Melodie Gliniewicz as to their dealings in that Explorers Program?
That is correct.
All right, and during your investigation, during those months, did you have occasion to speak with Melodie Gliniewicz?
Yes, I did.
And your purpose for speaking with her was a couple of reasons, but primarily an inquiry into her involvement and knowledge of the Fox Lake Explorers Program, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and then on October the 8th of 2015, did you set up a meeting with Melodie Gliniewicz to interview her at the Round Lake Beach Police Department?
Yes, I did.
And the interview started about 10:45 a.m., is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you were there with also a Special Agent David Young of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and regarding the Melodie Gliniewicz you met with that day, is there stipulation in the identification?
Sure.
Okay, the record may reflect, witness can identify the defendant Melodie Gliniewicz as being the person you interviewed that date, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, and then when you met with her to interview her, can you just very briefly describe the purpose that you and Agent Young had in conducting that interview?
Well, the interview was a twofold process. Agent Young had a scripted set of questions that he was going to ask to try and develop a profile of Joe Gliniewicz. My participation in that was some questions about the administration and finances of the Explorer post, as well as to expound on any answers she gives to the questions about Joe, if that opens up any other doors that would be relative to what I wanted to know about.
That interview started about 10:45 in the morning on 10/8 at 15, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and the interview room you used at the Round Lake Beach Police Department is considered a soft interview room
Yes.
with a couch and so on?
Yes, sir.
All right, that interview room is equipped both to audio and video record the interview, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
In fact, was that interview on that date video and audio recorded?
Yes, it was.
All right, and prior to coming to court today, did you have occasion to once again watch that video interview?
Yes, I did.
All right, I believe there's a stipulation for the admission of the video being People's Exhibit 38. So I'd ask that if this is a hard copy for the court, if I may tender that, Your Honor. We also have